What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Shameless Watch Collector. Thank you guys so much for watching my Amazon brand guide. I had an absolute blast making that one. But the only downside was having to cut out a ton of watches, because if I didn't, that one would have been a full feature-length film. And there are a few brands in that guide that I could have easily filled an entire video with. So that's exactly what we're doing today. And we're going to do what I call the Mount Rushmore of Amazon watch hunting. Seiko, Citizen, Timex, and the subject of today's video, Casio. Just to be clear, this is still part of the Amazon brand guide series, so we're only focusing on Casio watches that you can find on Amazon. But I do have a bonus in the back half of this video. We're also going to take a look at Casio's other brand, G-Shock. Everything I show in this video will be affiliate linked in the description below. Time to go watch hunting. Let's get into it. As always, we'll start with a quick history lesson, because I nerd out over this stuff, and I hope you guys do too. Casio's watch story doesn't start with some old watchmaking myth. It starts with post-war Japan, and practical electronics like calculators, and a company philosophy that stayed consistent for decades. Build useful tech for everyday people, and then make it smaller, cheaper, and tougher than anyone expects. When Casio moved into watches, they brought that same mindset with them. Timekeeping should be functional, reliable, feature-packed, and accessible. These were designed to be used, not admired from a distance. That approach changed what a watch should be for a lot of people. Things like alarms, timers, stopwatches, world time, backlights, and calendars that you didn't have to babysit. Small conveniences that sound normal now, but were a big deal when they hit the mainstream. Casio also has this quiet confidence baked into them. Their watches don't ask to be treated like jewelry. They're built for people who want a legitimate timepiece on their wrist without spending the whole day worrying about it. That's why Casio has such a special place in the watch world. It could be your first watch, while still earning respect from someone who has a collection that costs as much as a luxury car. Another part of Casio's identity is their willingness to get a little weird. And I mean that in a good way. Plenty of brands take themselves way too seriously. Casio has always been comfortable making watches that feel like gadgets, and leaning into the fact that a tiny little computer on your wrist is cool. And then there's the reliability. Casio has built a reputation for watches that just keep going. Efficient modules, straightforward controls, durable materials, and batteries that last so long that you forgot what year you bought your watch. That trust is why Casio has such a strong place on Amazon today. Decades of consistency built into a watch that you don't have to overthink. It's also why their catalog feels so massive. Casio isn't one watch, not even close. It's a whole map of use cases and personalities built on the same foundation of function and value. We'll break this down by the different Casio lanes, and then you can figure out what makes the most sense to buy on Amazon depending on what you want your watch to do. And we'll start with the analog digital watches. Casio really helped define the analog digital look, and they've been doing it for so long that they themselves claim they pioneered it back in the 80s. Decades later, and they're still arguably the best at it. The first one we'll start with is the AMW 870DA. This is a classic analog digital dressed up with some vivid modern dial colors. You're looking at about 45 millimeters across and only 12.3 thick. You get 50 meters of water resistance and a 10-year battery life. Feature-wise, you're getting a stopwatch, countdown timer, 3 alarms, a backlight, and telememo, which allows you to store up to 30 names and numbers, which honestly is completely unnecessary in 2026, but also what makes it so charming. For this one, anywhere around $100 is fair. If you see it under $90, I'd say that's a win. If it's over $120, I'd wait for a sale. The AW80 is the analog digital built to be a daily. It's about 40 millimeters in diameter and 13.5 thick, and you get 50 meters of water resistance, as well as the other digital features you'd expect from Casio, plus another 10-year battery. It's compact, practical, and wears easy on just about any wrist. This one is incredibly well priced at about $35 to $45 right now on Amazon. Now for the more rugged stuff. This is where the solar pieces come in. The AQS 820W is bigger on wrist at 50 millimeters in diameter and 12.7 thick, but super light at only 40 grams because it's resin. You also get 100 meters of water resistance and the solar charging. You still get the Casio features you'd expect. Stopwatch, timer, alarms, backlight, all in a watch that can take some serious punishment. Look to get this solar powered piece for around $55 to $75. The AEQ 100W is the world time analog digital with the globe pattern on the dial. You're getting 100 meters of water resistance again here, the 10-year battery, world time, and Telememo 30 again. World time here means you can jump the digital display across time zones, which is really useful if you travel or work with people in different regions and don't enjoy reading analog. This watch is also amazingly priced, and you can look to get it for around $40 on Amazon. Now for the one that's very Casio, the WVA M630D Wave Scepter. This is a solar radio-controlled analog digital with 50 meters of water resistance. Wave Scepter means it can sync to atomic time signals, so your watch automatically corrects itself. Day, date, time, and daylight savings adjustments are handled for you. Reception depends on where you live in your environment, so if you're deep in a concrete building, it may not sync every night. But even the occasional sync keeps it dead on accurate. So if you want maximum low maintenance ownership, this watch is the move. Around $109 is solid for this 42mm beauty that is also only 11mm thick. And finally, a quick nod to the dressier AQ series of analog digitals. We already talked about them in the first part of my Amazon guide, so I'll keep this short, but these are still some of my favorites. Great proportions, really fun colors, and they just scratch that retro itch perfectly. These are on top of my radar during the next big sale on Amazon. Let's move on to our second section, full digital. This is where Casio really established their identity. These are the watches that made people fall in love with the brand. They're simple, dependable, feature-packed, and ridiculously priced. We'll start with the F91, the legend, the watch that started so many collections out there. One of the best value watches on the planet. It's sleek and very thin with a 35mm case that's only 8.5mm thick and absurdly light at only 21 grams, so it wears like it's part of your wrist. You get the digital essentials like an alarm, stopwatch, calendar, and basic backlight. And this one is kind of like the Duro in the way that you need one of those if you're starting a diver collection. If you're starting a digital collection, the F91 needs to be part of it. And the craziest part, seeing this watch around $20 is normal, which makes it one of the most no-brainer purchases and best value pieces in all of watches. The A700 has that same vintage spirit, but slimmer than the F91 at only 6mm. So it slides under a sleeve like it's nothing. This one is also priced a little higher, but still great value at around $50 to $70 on Amazon. The A168 is another all-time classic with that same familiar shape, but you get a metal bracelet and the electroluminescent backlight. This thing is just so clean looking and gorgeous with that polished case and bracelet, and looks so much more expensive than the $20 to $30 you can find it for on Amazon. If you want that classic Casio metal look, but even more stripped down than the A168, the A158 and A159 family is the move. Same general retro bracelet vibe, just cleaner and more minimal. And still ridiculously well priced, occasionally available in the 20s on Amazon. Along those same lines, but with their light resin material, is the W217H. Bigger at around 21mm around, 10 thick, but still only 32 grams. It's sporty, easy to read, and has 50 meters of water resistance, and available for the same pricing of around $20 to $30. If you want a modern take on the small digital Casio that's lightweight, comfy, but still super functional, the LF20 is a great pick. It has that retro future layout that looks like a tiny control panel, but it wears like a feather with that bio-based resin renewable band. You're also getting the world time function with 31 unique time zones, 48 cities, and automatic daylight savings. Under $30 is also doable for this watch. Now, let's look at a special one. My favorite fully digital Casio, the AE1200, also known as the Casio Royale. This modern icon has 100 meters of water resistance, world time with a map display, and that cockpit dashboard layout that people have become obsessed with for good reason. Anywhere in the $30 to $40 range is an absolute steal for this highly capable and beautiful piece. If you like the Royale but want more timer features, the AE1300 is the move. Same general footprint, 100 meters of water resistance, 10-year battery, but the headline feature is the interval timers and the preset referee timer setup. Interval timers are perfect for training. You set work-rest cycles, and the watch walks you through it without you having to touch anything. This one is built for workouts, training rounds, sports practice, cooking, anything where timing matters more than aesthetics. You can get this one for the same price as the 1200, which is awesome. The WS1700 is the last digital piece that I'm going to show you guys, and this one brings tide tracking and moon phase data, which makes it a useful tool for fishing, boating, and coastal life. And this is always a complication I enjoy, and it's cool to see it on a digital watch. This is a bigger case, around 48 millimeters in diameter, but you get 100 meters of water resistance, and just another reminder that Casio has a watch for just about anything. This one typically hangs out around the $45 range. So as you can tell, fully digital watches are where some of the best value can be found with Casio. Let's move on to our third section, the MTP series. So now that we've covered a bunch of digital displays, let's jump to the lane that stays fully analog, the MTPs. These are simple, elegant pieces that offer some of the most accessible ways to get into Casio. You're getting simple quartz reliability, good proportions, and a lot of fun different dial styles, colors, and textures to choose from. The MTP VD01 is the bigger, bolder one, coming in at 45 millimeters in diameter and 10.3 thick, and you're getting 50 meters of water resistance. It's straightforward, legible, and I really like the teal dial variant. One note about this one, while it kind of looks like a diver style watch, that bezel does not rotate. The MTP VD03 is a little slimmer and cleaner at 41 millimeters and 9.6 thick. Often you find that checkered pattern on the dial. You're getting 30 meters of water resistance on this one and another stainless steel band. Both of these can normally be found at around $50, but can drop to around $30 during big sales. Now if you want the MTP line with a bit more style and color, the B145 series is where it gets really fun. These have a smaller, more classic footprint, around 35 millimeters in diameter and only 7.4 thick, but you're still getting 50 meters of water resistance, and the colors are what makes this line so much fun. You've got that salmon and pink one, the green, the yellow, the blue, and the full gold. There's so many options and they all look great and bring tons of personality. And I think we all know what vibes that K-shape is giving off. There are so many different listings for this series on Amazon, most priced from $75 to about $90, so keep your eye out for the ones you like and strike when the price is right for you. The MTP 1381 is a more vintage style piece, coming in at 39.9 millimeters in diameter and 8.9 thick. Again, 50 meters of water resistance and a super clean day-date setup with a beautiful texture on the inner circle of the dial. For a chronograph option, I love the MTP 1375D with its modern look and two-tone dial. This is a 42 millimeter diameter piece that's only 9.7 thick with 50 meters of water resistance. Both this and the last MTP I showed you can be found for around $75 on a good day on Amazon. The 38mm diameter and 9.2 thick MTP 1302 is where you can find their absolutely gorgeous mother of pearl dial. Casio has one of my favorite mother of pearl dials out there, and that is why this is my favorite MTP watch. The price on this one is also very fair, currently available for just under $70 on Amazon. And to wrap up this section, we'll look at a simple day-to-day piece that reminds me a lot of the Seiko 5 sport watches, and that's the MTP 1239D. It's super clean and sleek at 38mm in diameter and also 9.2 thick, and it's obviously a fraction of the price of a Seiko 5, usually available for around $50. Let's move on to our next section, dive style watches. This is where a lot of my favorite Casio watches can be found, and let's start with one I gush about all the time on here, the MDV 106. Most people know this as the Duro, and I talk about this watch a lot on Amazon videos, so I'll keep it short here. Stainless steel 44mm in diameter case that feels 10 times its price and is only 12mm thick. A legit 200 meters of water resistance, a classic dive layout with just enough Casio design touches, a rotating bezel with zero play, and a watch that looks good on any strap, especially the stainless steel ones you can find on places like AliExpress, specifically made for this watch. Under $50 is the sweet spot for a Duro in my opinion. If it's pushing more than $90, I would wait unless you're buying a specific colorway that is always on the higher end of prices. Moving on to the next watch, I kind of view the MDV 10D as the Duro's little brother. It's more universally sized at around 38mm and 10.4 thick, and you still get that same dive style layout and unidirectional bezel plus the screw down crown, but only 50 meters of water resistance here. This one is actually usually priced a little higher than the bigger Duro on Amazon, which I think is interesting. So if you have a small wrist and you can find it for anywhere close to 50, and you've been jealous with people with a big enough wrist for the big Duro, I would not hesitate to pick this watch up. Casio leans into more marine inspired with the MRW 230H. The case is 44.6mm and it's 12.3 thick, but only weighs 34 grams thanks to the resin case and band. So it wears big, but it feels weightless. You get 100 meters of water resistance, a rotating bezel with an aluminum ring that catches light in a really nice way, a day-date display, and battery life for around 3 years. The best part about this watch though is that it's stupid cheap. It can usually be found for around $30, often less. The MRW 200H is the same general idea, but slightly thinner at 11.6 millimeters, and a little heavier at 39 grams. And you still get 100 meters of water resistance, a rotating bezel, and great value, usually available for $50 for the different color options offered. I would also check out the MTP S1110, a solar-powered diver with 100 meters of water resistance, a stainless steel case that comes in at 47 millimeters in diameter and only 10.9 thick, and overall just a really rugged and tough-looking watch that you can get for around $100 on Amazon right now. And finally, while the MWA 100H isn't necessarily a diver and doesn't have a rotating bezel, I still felt like it deserved a quick mention in this category. It's a bigger case at 49.6 in diameter and 13.5 millimeters thick, but again, only 53 grams. You get 100 meters of water resistance, an LED illuminator, and a resin case with a stainless steel bezel that gives it a really nice heavy-duty look. It also uses a dedicated battery for the light, which makes sure you're not burning through power just because you like looking at the backlight. You can also find this one for just under $50 right now. Time for our next section, Edifice. Edifice is Casio's clean-cut performance line, where you'll find some of their more sharper cases, best quality bracelets, and their automotive-themed pieces. This is also where a sapphire crystal shows up a lot more often, which is always a welcome bonus on a Casio. Let's start with the EFR S108DE, a watch that looks way more expensive than it has any right to. It's about 40 millimeters in diameter and only 7.8 millimeters thick. Incredibly thin cases are common in the Edifice line, which is also why they're some of the most premium looking and wearing pieces that Casio makes. You're also getting 100 meters of water resistance here, a sapphire crystal, and a 3-year battery. The textured dial is just stunning, and Edifice dials seem to always look better in person. These stronger specs do come with a heftier price tag, but the value is still there. I'd look to get this one anywhere close to or below $100. If the textured dial isn't your thing, just take the E out of the reference number and check out the EFR S108D series. Pretty much the same watch, but uses a gorgeous brush dial instead. Another one that I can personally vouch looks way better in person. The EF527D is a busy, technical chronograph with an unapologetic wrist presence at 45.5 millimeters in diameter, 11.4 millimeters thick, and it weighs 157 grams. You get a slide rule bezel on this one too, which most people won't use, but it looks cool and unique while giving the watch an instrument feel. A slide rule bezel is basically an old school analog calculator. You can do quick conversions and math if you know what you're doing, but even if you never touch it, it still adds that aviation racing tool watch vibe that Edifice does so well. This is another watch that's a steal if you can find it anywhere close to or below 100. If this one is too loud, the EFV650D is a more modern, cleaner chronograph option that is also more universally sized at 43.5 millimeters, 11 thick, and only 128 grams. Like the previous chrono, you get stainless steel, 100 meters of water resistance, mineral glass over the dial, and a screw-down crown. I would look to find this one around the same pricing of $100 as well. The EFB 109D hits that daily sweet spot at 38 millimeters in diameter and only 9.2 thick, with a timeless and classy looking case. You're also getting sapphire crystal here, a clean layout, 100 meters of water resistance, and some gorgeous style colors to choose from. This one is currently on sale for $118, marked down from its usual price of $145. If you want that same case style and specs, similar pricing, but with a full chrono dial, check out the EFB 730D. The EFK 100 Carbon Automatic is the most expensive watch on this list and the only automatic. The forged carbon dial is absolutely incredible on this 39mm piece that is only 12.5 thick. It's powered by the Seiko NH35, and you get sapphire crystal, 100 meters of water resistance, and an integrated stainless steel bracelet. It's just one of the coolest Casios ever created in my opinion. This one is currently sitting around $475, which is about right for an automatic using authentic carbon fiber. If I ever find this watch for close to $250, I don't think I'm going to be able to resist. To finish off this section, I wanted to show you guys an Edifice that you could get for under $50. But you still get that same personality and great specs. The EF305 brings a multi-dial look but on a resin strap and keeps it light and very wearable at only 72 grams. The case is 40 millimeters and 10.6 thick, you're still getting 100 meters of water resistance, a screw lock back, but just no sapphire glass here, using mineral crystal instead. So while the Edifice line is where some of the more pricier Casios can be found, I think they're justifying it with great specs, gorgeous watches, and it's where they finally introduced automatic watches to their catalog. And let's wrap this up with one last section, the most Casio Casios. I had to throw in a few bonus watches that show off the fun and goofy side of Casio, and that is obviously where the calculator watches live. If you've never owned one, I think you need to try it at least once, not because you're going to be doing calculus on your wrist every day, although you absolutely could, but because it's one of the purest examples of Casio's practical, nerdy, and cool personality. The CA53W is the classic, and it's the one that everyone pictures when you say Casio calculator watch. It's slim, lightweight, and instantly recognizable. It looks like it walked straight out of an 80s movie. You get the calculator function obviously, but you also get the basic digital toolkit of time, alarm, stopwatch, and auto calendar. So it's simple, fun, and one of those watches that sparks a conversation with people who don't even care about watches. The craziest part is that you can get this one for around $40, and during sales it can often be found for less. The CA53WF2B is basically the same idea, but more playful, color-forward, and more modern casual. It has the same core concept and functions, but you can find this one for a little cheaper, sometimes in the 30s. Let's wrap this all up with the Pac-Man collab. You're getting that unmistakable Casio design, but with the Pac-Man cues that make it such a fun, collectible, and nostalgia piece. This one is currently hovering around the $75 range, and who knows what will happen to it once it sells out. Alright, it's time to step into Casio's other universe and take a look at G-Shock. The backstory here is one of the best in watches. In the early 80s, Casio had an engineer named Kiku Ibe. The story goes that he dropped and broke a watch that mattered a lot to him, and instead of shrugging it off, he took it personally. He put together a small internal team called Project Team Tough, and they set out to build a watch that could survive the wear and tear of real life. Their target became the 10-10 concept: survive a 10-meter drop, handle 10-bar water resistance, and run for 10 years on battery. And they weren't gentle about testing it either. They built prototype after prototype and destroyed them by dropping them, throwing them, and smashing them. And the breakthrough didn't come by making the case thicker. It was a shock-resistant structure where the module is protected inside the case so the impacts get dispersed instead of traveling straight into the guts of the watch. In 1983, Casio released the first G-Shock, the DW5000C, and that square silhouette became the blueprint, and what had started as an engineering flex had taken on a life of its own. Tool watch people adopted it because it could take abuse, and culture picked it up because it looks like nothing else. And suddenly, G-Shock became its own brand with an identity exclusive to themselves. And that's what we're shopping today on Amazon. Watches built from the ground up to survive impacts, life on your wrist without babying it, and still be fun and good looking enough to wear out just about anywhere. First up, we'll start with the GA100, the watch that helped define the big, bold, analog-digital G-Shock look that so many people associate with the brand. It wears like equipment with a big 51mm diameter case that is nearly 17mm thick. However, this one also uses a resin case and strap, so it only weighs 70 grams. You're getting the full G-Shock foundation of shock resistance, 200 meters of water resistance, and magnetic resistance. And feature-wise, this thing is stacked with world time, 5 alarms, a countdown timer, and a stopwatch. It even has a speed function with a Mach indicator, to give you guys more of an idea of what G-Shock is all about. This watch is available in a million different color and strap combinations, including the A1 Blackout and Stealthy versions, or the XL line, and most can typically be found for around $100. Great value for a watch packed with features that would require power tools to destroy. The GA700 has similar presence and pricing, but a little bit different of a personality, built around readability and quick use. It's even bigger than the GA100 at 53.4mm in diameter and 18.4 thick, but it weighs the same as the 100 thanks to the resin. The layout is cleaner and more modern than the GA100's instrument panel look. You have big hands, bold markers, and the biggest quality of life feature is that the front light button is at 6 o'clock, so you can hit it without having to feel for a side pusher. You still get the core tools of world time, stopwatch, timer, 5 alarms, and it has hand shift, so the hands can move out of the way when they're blocking the digital display. Battery life is typically longer too. You're usually in that 5-year range versus the more common 2-year expectation on a lot of the older, bigger case models. You can also find the UC versions of this series with more utility, military-inspired color palettes. We'll close out this portion of G-Shock with the GA110, which has become a massive worldwide seller and one I personally like just a little bit more than the GA100. The 110 is size and weighs very similar to the 100, but the design is more layered and mechanical looking. You can also occasionally find this one for cheaper on Amazon, sometimes as low as $60 or $70 during sales. A more simple and understated G-Shock is the DW5600. If the GA series immediately doesn't come to mind, this is the shape a lot of people picture when they hear G-Shock. It's a 42.8mm case that's 13.4 thick and only weighs 52 grams. You get 200 meters of water resistance, shock resistance, and the classic digital toolkit that includes a stopwatch, 24-hour countdown timer, alarm, hourly signal, full auto calendar, and a bright LED background with afterglow. The price seems to fluctuate for this one on Amazon quite often, but you can usually find it for around $50 to $65. Let's wrap this video up by talking about my favorite G-Shock ever, my favorite analog digital watch ever made, and honestly, one of my favorite watches on the planet, the GA2100, also known as the Casio. People call it the Casio because of that octagonal bezel shape. Watch people immediately connected it with the AP Royal Oak silhouette, and the nickname stuck permanently. This one just hits that perfect balance. You get the G-Shock toughness, but it's slim enough to wear all the time. It's 45mm in diameter and only 11.8 thick and weighs 51 grams. It also wears way smaller than the numbers suggest because it's thin and flat on the wrist. The GA2100 uses Casio's carbon core guard structure, which is a big reason why it can be slimmer without feeling delicate. You still get 200 meters of water resistance, world time, stopwatch timer, alarms, and a double LED. And also, the customization is half the reason why this watch became such a phenomenon. I personally love throwing these into aftermarket metal cases from AliExpress or Amazon and turning them into something that looks 20 times its price. And beyond just the cases, the mod ecosystem is endless. You have straps, indices, chapter rings, hands if you have the skill, even faceplates. You can make one GA2100 look like 10 different watches. On Amazon specifically, the color selection is the fun part. You've got the classic stealth blacks, the high contrast white dials, brighter seasonal colors, matte looks, translucent and semi-translucent case styles, gradient dials, and versions where the indices pop more aggressively. It changes constantly, so this is one of the best watches to browse if you're hunting for a specific look. The prices for these on Amazon usually range from about $80 to $125, but during big sales, I've seen them go for as low as $60. Now let's look at some other pieces in the 2100 series. You have the GM2100, which I think was Casio looking at all of us making our custom metal Casios and deciding that they wanted in. The GM2100 family keeps the same shape, but adds a stainless steel bezel over a reinforced resin inner case, so you get more weight and presence without losing the shock protection. This one is certainly more expensive though, usually hovering around $200 to $300. I'd say other 2100 submodels worth knowing are the GA-B2100, which adds tough solar and Bluetooth time sync, the GMA-S2100, which is the smaller sized one, and the bracelet versions like the GM2100D for the full-on metal-on-metal Casio look. Alright guys, so that's gonna do it for my first ever brand specific guide and this edition of an Amazon brand guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Just a quick reminder that patience really pays when it comes to Casio and Amazon. I see people agreeing with me all the time in the comments that the prices on here are always changing, quite literally by the minute. So try to resist from those impulse buys and just check frequently, and I can pretty much guarantee you that there will be a moment where you can grab one of your favorite pieces at a price that you don't think makes sense. If you saw any pieces in this video that you loved, they are all affiliate linked in the description below. Coming soon, we'll be finishing off the Mount Rushmore of Amazon watch hunting with Citizen, Seiko, and Timex, and we have a lot more watch reviews coming up as well. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We will be giving away another watch at 5,000 subscribers. Thank you all so much for your support, and I'll see you in the next video. Shamus Watch Collector, signing out. And always remember, it's not that serious.